Have you ever noticed that some dreams make you feel tired before you've even begun? Not after failing, not after trying, before the very first step. You buy a notebook, save a video, write down an idea. Promise yourself this time will be different. And for a moment, you believe it. Then somehow, without anything happening, the excitement disappears. Tomorrow becomes the answer, again. And after enough tomorrows, you begin asking yourself a painful question. Am I just lazy? Or have you been asking yourself the wrong question all along? Dreams rarely disappear overnight. Most of them fade so quietly that we hardly notice. At first, everything feels possible. You imagine the healthier version of yourself, the business you wanted to build, the book you hoped to write, the life that always seemed just one decision away. But the longer you stare at that future, the heavier it begins to feel. Not because the dream changed, because your mind starts measuring everything it might cost. But have you noticed something strange? When someone you love is struggling, you don't call them lazy. You tell them they're overwhelmed, that they're carrying too much, that it's okay to take their time. But when it's you, something changes. One unfinished goal, and you call yourself a failure. One difficult season, and you decide you'll never change. Why is compassion so easy to give away and so difficult to keep for ourselves? Maybe the loudest voice holding you back has always been your own. The strange thing about dreams is that they don't become heavier because they get bigger. They become heavier because we keep carrying them without moving. Every day you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow. You don't set the dream down. You carry it into work, into bed, into quiet moments when no one else is watching. Until one day, the dream that was supposed to inspire you becomes the very thing that exhausts you. Maybe that's why you're tired. Not because you've been doing too much, but because you've been carrying too much without ever letting yourself begin. Failure isn't what changes us. Everyone fails. It's what happens afterward that quietly rewrites who we believe we are. At first you say, I didn't succeed. But after enough disappointments, the sentence changes. Maybe I'm just not the kind of person who can. And that's where the real damage begins. Because now every new opportunity feels less like hope and more like another test. Not to discover what you're capable of, but to confirm what you already fear. Sometimes the voice telling you that you can't was never yours to begin with. Maybe it came from someone who doubted you, someone who laughed, compared you, expected perfection. Or maybe it came from a younger version of yourself who simply didn't know any better. Yet somehow that voice stayed. It became so familiar that you stopped questioning it. You called it reality, when all along it was only fear wearing your own voice. We think change begins with a giant decision, but most lives never change that way. They change one small choice at a time. One sentence written, one walk around the block, one page read, one difficult phone call finally made. Small enough that fear doesn't notice. Small enough that hope quietly returns. Maybe the goal was never to finish everything today. Maybe the goal was simply to prove to yourself that you're still capable of beginning. Maybe you've spent years looking at everyone else's timeline, watching people your age buy homes, build careers, start families, launch businesses. And somewhere along the way, you quietly decided that you were too late. But life has never been a race.
It only feels like one when you're looking sideways. The truth is, the only timeline you've ever been meant to follow is your own. And your story isn't finished yet. Sometimes we postpone our lives because we're waiting to become someone else. A more confident version, a smarter version, a stronger version. As if one morning we'll wake up and finally feel ready. But what if that person has been waiting for you instead? Waiting for today's decision, today's courage, today's beginning. Maybe you don't become that person before you start. Maybe you become them because you started.
Think about the notebook from the beginning. It never asked you to fill every page. It never expected a masterpiece. It simply waited, patiently, quietly, day after day. Maybe your dreams have been doing the same. Not demanding perfection, only asking for one honest beginning. Because every finished story was once a single sentence. Maybe nothing was ever wrong with you. Maybe you weren't lazy, or broken, or incapable. Maybe you were simply carrying expectations that no human being could carry forever. Maybe you confused slowing down with giving up. Maybe you confused fear with truth. And maybe you've been waiting all this time for someone to tell you it's okay to begin again. So let this be that moment. Remember what you told yourself at the beginning? Maybe tomorrow. Maybe today is finally tomorrow. Not because your fear disappeared, not because life became easier, but because you finally realized you don't have to believe every thought that tells you to wait. One small beginning is enough. For today, that's enough. So why do dreams make us feel tired before we've even begun? Maybe it was never because you were lazy. Maybe it was because hope had been disappointed too many times. But hope has something beautiful about it. No matter how many times it breaks, it quietly waits for one more chance. And maybe so have you. Maybe the life you've been waiting for doesn't begin with a perfect plan. Maybe it begins with one sentence, one page, one quiet decision to stop waiting for the person you hope to become and finally become them by beginning.